All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to break down something I think we've all felt at some point. Why even the best, most mission-driven organizations can just get completely stuck. And, more importantly, what we can actually do about it.
So let's kick things off with a question that probably hits pretty close to home for a lot of you. I mean, think about it. You're all in on the mission, right? You're surrounded by smart, talented people, but then when it's time to actually make a move, there's this pause, this hesitation. It's so frustrating, and it happens all the time. So why? Why does this happen? Well, that feeling of being stuck, it actually has a name. And it all starts with a gap, a pretty serious disconnect between what a company says it's all about and what people actually experience day in and day out. And that gap, that's what we call cultural inconsistency. It's when the fancy posters on the wall talk about ownership and innovation, but the reality is just a maze of approvals and red tape. And over time, that gap becomes this huge source of frustration, and it just eats away at trust. And let's be honest, once that trust starts to go, everything else, collaboration, risk-taking, it all just grinds to a halt.
And that, right there, leads straight into something called decision paralysis. Instead of using their own smarts and judgment, it's like everyone freezes and just looks up, waiting for the boss or the boss's boss to give the green light. So what's the real root cause of all this paralysis? Here's the kicker. It's not because people are lazy or don't care. It actually comes from this fascinating and, frankly, really frustrating idea called the paradox of power. What happens is this really vicious cycle gets created. People genuinely, truly believe in the mission, but deep down they doubt their own power or their own authority to actually act on it. So you have all these amazing people waiting for a green light that, well, it might never actually come.
And the consequences of this? Man, they are so damaging. This isn't just about projects moving a little slower. We're talking about chronic self-doubt spreading through the teams, a culture built on hesitation, and a deep-seated fear of taking any kind of risk. It can paralyze an entire organization.
Okay, so how do we actually break out of this? The solution is really powerful, but it's going to require us to totally rethink how we see power itself. Now, what's so interesting here is that the answer isn't what you'd think. It's not about some big boss just handing out more power from on high. In fact, doing that just makes the problem worse. It reinforces the idea that power is something you have to be given, not something you already have. The real key, the huge shift, is to completely reframe what empowerment even means. We've got to move away from this old model, the one based on external control, where power is something you're given and you're always waiting for someone else to say yes. Instead, we need to move to a new model of internal discipline. This is where power is a muscle you build and practice, where you act from a place of clarity and take real ownership. And look, this new model, it's not just some abstract idea. It's actually built on 3 really concrete, actionable things that anyone, leaders, teams, can start doing, like right now. So what's in the toolkit? It comes down to these 3 core disciplines. First, we have to restore agency. Second, leaders need to model adaptive mastery. And third, we have to foster authentic self-alignment. Together, these are the things that make this new model of empowerment a reality.
All right, let's dig into that first one, restore agency. This is all about fighting that instinct to just wait. To wait for permission, to wait for someone else to tell you exactly what to do.
So, how do you do it? Well, restoring agency means leaders have to actively push their people to think for themselves, to challenge the status quo, and to take true psychological ownership of their work. It's about making people feel responsible for the outcome, not just for checking a box on a task list. Okay, discipline number 2. This one is huge, and it's all about how leaders behave, because you can't just talk the talk here. You absolutely have to walk the walk, especially when things get messy or uncertain.
This is where leaders have to show, not just tell, what it looks like to navigate that complexity. It's about being transparent about the real challenges, showing real resilience even when you don't have all the answers, and being a living, breathing example of the company's values in action.
And that brings us to our third and final discipline, and this one is so crucial. It's all about connecting the dots between what makes an individual tick, their own purpose, and the bigger mission of the organization. Honestly, this is where the real magic happens. See, when you can help people connect what they truly care about, their own personal values, with the work they're doing every day, you create what's called psychological coherence. It's a game changer.
People stop just doing a job and start acting from a place of powerful personal clarity, and that's when they really take initiative.
Okay, so what happens when you actually put these 3 disciplines into practice, day in and day out? It's not just a little tweak. We're talking about a total transformation of your entire culture.
What you get is a culture of what's called empowered accountability. And that is the end game here. It's a state where you don't need all that external control because everyone is guided by their own internal discipline. They're acting with clarity, with initiative, and with a sense of ownership that can propel the organization forward.
And the ripple effects? I mean, they go so far beyond just getting things done faster. You're strengthening autonomy, you're making ethical action just the natural way of doing things, and you're building a real learning culture. You're developing leaders at every single level, and ultimately, you're building an organization that is truly resilient. So, this really leaves us with a big question to take away and think about. When you look at your own team or your whole company, where is the biggest opportunity to stop waiting for that permission slip and start practicing this kind of internal discipline instead? Where can you be the one to start closing that gap?